Every central bank is gobbling up gold. It would benefit every single one of them. Why 24,000? He has a formula of dividing M1 into the amount of gold, etc. But every $4,000 increase in the price of gold would give the Treasury general account $1 trillion free and clear. And the way that that works, without getting too deep into the weeds, is that the Treasury would issue gold certificates to the Federal Reserve for that amount. The Federal Reserve would then safekeep the gold and would give the print money and give the Treasury, in this case, $6 trillion free and clear, that they could use to pay down the balance sheet or to issue treasuries, whatever it may be. Now, the Fed does not have access to that gold. It still belongs to the Treasury.
Since November, nearly $100 billion in gold has quietly flowed into the US, but it's not staying. In May alone, $8.5 billion was delivered off COMEX in a record gold drain. But this isn't just about delivery. It's a financial sleight of hand, already underway. Andy Schectman reveals how the Treasury could issue $6 trillion in gold certificates without a single vote by tapping into the gold revaluation account on the US balance sheet. The Fed prints the money, the gold stays in Treasury custody, and the debt quietly vanishes. This isn't theory. It's the foundation of a gold-backed financial reset. And if Trump and Judy Shelton move as hinted, gold won't just be insurance. It'll be the only exit from a collapsing system. Time is running out.
Gold is going higher, but we see a trend of repatriation and delivery, whether it be the commercial banks repatriating their gold from the Bank of England and the New York Fed, or massive players draining the LBMA and huge deliveries coming off the COMEX. For the first time ever since November, the United States is a net importer of gold. Who is importing nearly $100 billion worth of gold since November into the United States? Into COMEX, most of it leaving the exchange. So if I were to encapsulate everything I just said, it's a shift away from Western dominance. It's a shift away from treasuries. It's a shift away from dollars in favor of commodities traded over a blockchain network. That's ultimately where I think we are going, whether it be what we see happening in China with the internationalization of the yuan and the ability to take delivery off of a series of now multi-jurisdictional hubs for the Shanghai Metals Exchange that they're building, and first one in Hong Kong, next one in Saudi Arabia, and a slew of them throughout Asia and Africa and ultimately South America. Or whether it be what we see here on COMEX, huge deliveries, metal coming in and coming off of the exchange. All of it points to the same thing to me, and that is a new system, a gradual reset, a system that is moving away from what was to a new system that will be dominated, as Zoltan Pozsar calls it, Bretton Woods 3, commodities and blockchain, and the marriage of those two things, if I had to guess, is where we are moving in what is now not such. It's moving at a faster speed. It started out very slow. It's starting to accelerate. And I think by this time next year, it will be much stronger. I really do. In fact, one of the slides I played today in my speech, the last slide, was Judy Shelton on my show, who was Trump's nominee to run the Fed in 2016. Many think she'll be replace Powell this time. And she said to me, and I played the slide on my video with her, that she believes, after discussions with President Trump, that on July 4th, 2026, he will issue, she says he's going to make a huge deal of that, the 250th year anniversary of the country, that she believes he will issue, starting with 50-year treasuries denominated and redeemable at maturity in gold. So I think we're moving into a system where gold is being remonetized, being brought back into the monetary system, and a move away from promises by a country that is insolvent and has done too much to anger the world through weaponizing of its systems. In essence, gold is considered a tier 1 asset, which is as good as cash. Now, It works that way for your liquidity ratios. They're playing games with it, in essence. For capital ratios, it's still not tier 1 high quality liquid asset. For liquidity ratios, it is. In essence, the only things that for capital ratios that work are treasuries and common stock. It's the legacy system. In every other respect, in particular the way the banks are looking at it, it's the same thing as a treasury. It's the same thing as cash. It is as of July 1st, in the United States, it is a high quality liquid asset, tier one for liquidity, meaning you can loan against it. It's as good as cash. It has a zero weighted um, risk. Um, I guess you call it. I don't even know the word I'm looking for. It is a zero risk,
Okay.
and it is good as cash for your the ability for it to be considered cash or as good as cash. It would have to be a bond or common stock. Now it's doubled the performance of the 10-year Treasury for 25 years, and it beat it by 36% last year, and it's killing it this year. So it's just a bunch of horse crap that the banks still are clinging to the fact that the legacy system, treasuries and common stock or preferred stock of these corporations would be considered tier one. In every other respect, it is tier one, it is HQLA. The capital ratio says, well, it's got to be stock or bonds, but the liquidity ratio on your balance sheet says, yes, it's as good as cash, it's as good as bonds, and has a zero weighting in terms of risk asset. So what did it mean? It just simply means that gold is gradually being reintegrated into the system and being acknowledged by the central banks as such. Look at the U.S. balance sheet. I would challenge everyone to Google United States government balance sheet. What you will find is 5 trillion in assets backed against 200 trillion in liabilities. Of those 5 trillion in assets, the largest asset, the United States government, not the United States government, the largest asset is student debt. Over 40%, about $1.5 trillion, is the single largest asset of the United States balance sheet. Number two is military. Military bases, guns, bullets, aircraft carriers. Now, these two things you're not monetizing.
Yeah.
Okay. The third is land. Okay, you could put some hotels or national parks or amusement parks or whatever. You can monetize, but what else? I don't know. So everyone assumed he was talking about gold. Gold is held on the United States balance sheet. You can't make this shit up. Pardon me. I'm sorry. You can't make this up. It's called the gold revaluation account. That is the name of the account that gold is held. That's the name of it on the U.S. balance sheet, the gold revaluation account. Everyone assumed that's what he was talking about. And he kind of said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I think someone got to him and said, Scott, what are you doing, man? Because the U.S. has become a net importer of gold since November, erasing a long-standing trend of being a net exporter. Since November, we've imported, that they've reported, just shy of $100 billion in gold. Since November, month over month over month over month of larger and larger and larger deliveries into COMEX, most of it leaving the COMEX. Who's buying it? Where's it going? In May, it was the largest delivery ever in the history of the COMEX market in both gold and silver. Over $8.5 billion worth of gold was delivered on the May contract. Who's got that money? There are people standing for delivery in this country that never, ever, 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 ever did before. And who is it? Then you get Trump, who comes out and says, he who has the gold makes the rules. He said that on a tweet on Easter Sunday, the golden art of negotiating. And then you have Judy Shelton, who I just had on my presentation, the last slide. Judy Shelton, I interviewed on my channel, and she was Trump's nominee to run the Fed in 2016. She didn't get confirmed due to partisan politics. A lot of people, including myself, believe she will be number one or two in the running to run it this time when Powell leaves. Her book, As Good as Gold, says the advocates for 50-year treasuries, starting with 50-year duration, redeemable at maturity in gold. On my podcast, I pressed play, a 1-minute segment for everyone to hear. She said, Trump and I have had discussions when I was part of the transition team, and we've talked about it a lot. And he's gonna make a very big deal of next July 4th, 2026, the 250th year anniversary of the country. And she said flat out and I played it for everyone here, it's my belief that they will issue 50-year treasuries redeemable in gold. Now, the first step in doing that would be to bring back all the gold. We become net importers month over month, massive amounts. Someone said to Scott, what are you doing, bro? You're not supposed to say this yet.
Yeah.
And that's why he backtracked off of, well, I wasn't talking about gold. Yeah, right. You were talking about gold. There ain't anything else they can monetize on the balance sheet. Maybe some land, some parks. Okay, great. That ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
So, and then I said to her, Judy, do you realize that gold is held in the Western balance sheet in an account called the gold revaluation account? She says, yes. Do you think gold will be revalued? And not in so many direct words. She said, yes, I do. James Rickard here says 24,000. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. Who would it benefit? Every central bank on the planet who's been buying it voraciously since you and I started talking 4 years ago. Every central bank is gobbling up gold. It would benefit every single one of them. Why 24,000? He has a formula of dividing M1 into the amount of gold, etc. But every $4,000 increase in the price of gold would give the Treasury General account $1 trillion free and clear. And the way that that works, without getting too deep into the weeds, is that the Treasury would issue gold certificates to the Federal Reserve for that amount. The Federal Reserve would then safekeep the gold and would give the print money and give the Treasury, in this case, $6 trillion free and clear, that they could use to pay down the balance sheet or to issue treasuries, whatever it may be. Now, the Fed does not have access to that gold. It still belongs to the Treasury. What they do have claim on is the fiat value of that gold. That's what those certificates mean. So it's a gimmick. It's a accounting gimmick that would create lots of inflation, but would start to allow the U.S. to pay down its debt. And think of what Judy says. Next July, he's going to issue 50-year treasuries. So you got a 50-year runway, of course, as well. But you need to have the price higher. So will they revalue it? Will it be issued? Because who's buying our treasuries? Nobody. They're selling treasuries at record levels. It's the lowest holding of treasuries ever. And now we have the United Kingdom is number 2, right? And in 3 or 4 is the Cayman Islands. So you got 2 of the most indebted countries on the planet buying each other's debt, the U.S. and the U.K. What could possibly go wrong there? It's like 2 drunk guys holding each other, leaning against each other to hold each other up. China is slipping to number 3. They only have 700 billion in treasuries. They used to have nearly 2 trillion. They're selling treasuries and buying commodities, buying tangibles. You know, China's going all around the world. They're the largest producer of gold in the world and number 2 in silver, and they're going all around the world. Go talk to Sean Kuhn here, Dolly Varden. He'll tell you that they're flying all around Latin America buying doré and concentrate directly from the miners, which disintermediates the marketplace entirely, and sending it, paying double what the West will, sending it back to China to refine it. And this is the largest producer of gold in the world and the second largest of silver. So why are they going and buying doré and concentrate, paying over market price and sending it back to refine it if it's just an archaic relic of the past? The point of it is that it's the same reason why you saw Saudi Arabia and China get caught lying about how much gold that they've imported on the import-export numbers. Oh, sorry, we made a mistake. But if the People's Bank of China buys gold and it's 999 pure, it has to report to the IMF. But what if they buy doré and concentrate that isn't? Well, they don't. What if the PBOC uses proxy banks, like a commercial bank, to buy it in the form of a sovereign wealth fund on behalf of, well, they don't need to report that either. And what if the People's Liberation Army buys it, which they buy tons? They don't have to report it. So that's why you're seeing articles come out saying that these numbers are 10 times understated to what the central banks are buying. My point to you is the central banks know the playbook. They're gobbling it up. So revaluing gold would benefit every one of these central banks. And yes, it would benefit those that we could argue are maybe borderline adversarial with us. But at the same time, what choice do we have? How do you get people to want to take our treasuries, which we need because our debt keeps growing? How do we get them to take our treasury when we're broke, we're insolvent, we're not fixing? Doge came up with 80 billion in savings. That's 36 hours worth of money printing in this country. Nothing. How do we get the world to want to take our treasuries? Well, we import all the gold, we reshore all the gold, we let the price rise, maybe revalue it, peg it to a 50-year treasury, which gives us more runway, and it's redeemable upon maturity. Now, she said that he would also issue shorter denominations later. But the point of it is that gold, in my mind, 1,000% is replacing the treasury. That is what it's not replacing the dollar. Local currencies, all these other countries ultimately will do that. But what it is replacing is the treasury, which is, in the scheme of things, more important to the government, to this country, to a country massively indebted, than the dollar is in being used for commerce.